Good evening and welcome to the Chaska Human Rights Commission meeting for Thursday, August 25th, 2022. Elise, would you please do the roll call?
Sure. Commissioner Kamen, Commissioner Hubbard.
Here.
Commissioner Welbert.
Here.
Commissioner Haga.
Here.
Commissioner Sanderson.
Here.
Commissioner Zayat.
Here.
Commissioner White. Chair Carlson.
Here. And we know that Commissioner White is on vacation this week. The agenda has been sent to us. Are there any changes to the agenda? If not, may I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Jen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Juana. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Tonight, we are lucky to have Pat Stieg with us. Pat is with Carver County Public Health, and he's going to talk with us tonight about Communities of Belonging, which is a program that they've initiated, and we can't wait to hear from you.
All right.
So if you want to come up to the podium, if you have a slideshow.
Yeah, I think Kevin is going to get it loaded up.
Excellent, Pat.
I did bring a couple of leave behinds for you. Those two at least.
Do you know everyone here on the commission?
I have not met them other than yourself, and then I recognize Jen's name from our email list, but I have not met her in person either.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here. So Kevin, whenever you're ready with the slides. All right. Well, again, my name is Pat Stieg, and I'm with the Carver County Public Health Department. Really pleased to be here tonight with all of you commissioners and share with you a little bit about the Communities of Belonging initiative. I'll go through about a dozen slides or so here to give you an orientation to what this initiative is all about, and then be happy to answer any questions or have any conversation or discussion with you. Next slide, please. So just for background, this initiative is part of our Community Health Improvement Plan, and we update that plan every 5 years. So we're right in the middle of the current plan because it runs from 2020 through 2024. And as you can see on the slide here, the mission of the Community Health Improvement Plan, which was developed by the Public Health Advisory Council, which is a group of residents from all over the county. You can see here the mission is that Carver County will be a safe and welcoming place where everyone belongs. All people are supported to be healthy throughout their lifespan, and everyone contributes to building a healthy, vibrant community. So this plan includes 4 broad priority issues and then a total of 10 goals that support those 4 priorities. And so I put up here the priority issue number 1. As you can see, it says, how do we ensure that everyone in Carver County has equitable opportunities to live and work in our communities and feel that they belong because of actions taken around the critical elements that create health? So this particular priority issue actually has 3 goals on it. The first one is to ensure that everyone in the county has adequate, safe, stable housing. Another one is similar, that people have adequate transportation to meet their needs. And then the third goal is the one listed here in what we call the well-being goal. And that one, as you can see, states that we want to make well-being a shared value by having conversations in the community about how health starts in our families, in our schools, in our workplaces, in our playgrounds and parks, and the air we breathe and the water we drink. So that sounds pretty broad, which it is. But the committee that is working on this particular goal is the one who came up with this idea of how can we go about achieving that goal. And they said, well, let's talk about this idea of communities of belonging. So that's kind of how we got to where we are tonight. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Next slide, please. So you may be familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that was one of the reasons behind the thinking that went into this initiative. And as you know, then at the bottom of the pyramid of these needs are physiological needs. We all as humans need water, and we need sleep, and we need food. And if we have those, then we can move on to our needs for safety and security. And then we can move on to the next level, which is we all need a sense of belonging. After that, if we have that sense, then we can move on to our need for a good esteem, and then finally self-actualization. And the esteem needs and the self-actualization needs, of course, cannot be met if we don't feel like we belong. And we cannot feel like we belong if we don't have our physiological needs and our safety needs met. So that's the thinking behind Dr. Maslow's hierarchy. And so as we looked at this in terms of what this mean for our initiative, we thought about it in terms of some of the health work that we do. And through our Public Health Advisory Council and, of course, the Carver County Public Health Department. And so we talk about issues like how can we expect a parent to seek help for their child who is experiencing mental health issues when they are continually challenged just to meet their housing needs. It's just not realistic. How can we expect people, our senior adults, to regularly go out for walks and get exercise if they don't feel safe in their neighborhoods? And more currently, how do we expect a person to come in and receive a COVID vaccination if they sense that, well, this isn't really for me, I'm an immigrant, this is for the white people who live in this community, because they don't feel like they belong. So that's just a little illustration of how we got here. Next slide, please. So as I've been doing this work in different communities around the county, I've been learning more all the time. And one of the things that we talked about was what's the difference between belonging and fitting in. And as you can see on this slide here, it's kind of summarized that if I belong, that means I get to be me unconditionally. But if I'm just expected to fit in, that means I'm only accepted if you accept me. If I belong, I'm being somewhere that I want to be, and others want me to be there. But if I'm just fitting in, nobody really cares if I'm there or not. If I belong, then I'm not seen as one of the others because of who I am. But if I'm just fitting in, I'm made to feel that I am less than if I'm being less than my true self. And finally, if I belong, I'm in the right place, that is a suitable place, because I know it and I feel it. So these are some of the things that we've talked about as we've developed this initiative as well. Next slide, please. So then we said, well, what is a community of belonging? And the community of belonging is a place that welcomes all people at all times, no matter what their age, their gender, their race, their ethnicity, their language, their faith beliefs, their income or occupation, their sexual orientation, their political ideology, their physical ability, or anything else that makes them the unique person that they are. They're welcomed at all times. And while the community of belongings is still a rather broad concept to think about, the well-being committee that came up with this kind of saw it as a frame for the creation of community of belongings, kind of a vision for what a community of belonging might be. And excuse me, and in recent years they've talked about other initiatives that have come around, such as livable communities, sustainable communities, healthy communities, resilient communities, restorative communities, vibrant communities, prosperous communities. And that's not to imply that these things are all exactly the same, but what they're thinking is that none of those types of communities can be achieved if it's operating on the premise of having a community that excludes people versus one that is inclusive of all people. Next slide, please. So this is kind of summarized in one of the handouts I gave you, why communities of belonging and why now. And I think we could all agree that we live in some very interesting times here in the United States. And in many ways, some of them are exciting and also some of them are rather troubling and challenging for all of us. And many of those challenges, of course, have existed for a very long time. And in the last couple of years, there's been incidents that have happened in our own communities or elsewhere in the country that have really made these challenges more pronounced. Everything from climate change and the effects that has had on many of our communities to civil unrest due to racial issues, the pandemic, just a variety of things that have really made it more evident that we have challenges in our community and challenges for everyone feeling like they belong. In Carver County during the pandemic, we were very happy to see so many people come together to help out their neighbors. And I think one example of that is right here in Chaska with the Chaska Care Initiative that came about early on in the pandemic. And that's the type of thing we saw throughout our county. And it shows that people can come together and help each other and include each other if we want to do that, if we want to make that happen. So the question really, as the committee saw it, really is not, is the world changing or not? Because it is changing. The question is whether or not we are changing, we as individuals and we as a collective community, to adapt to those changes and continue to make sure that everyone feels welcomed and included and belongs. Next slide, please. So the committee then looked at, well, how else has this type of work been done in other places? And in public health in particular, we're starting to focus or refocus our attention around the underlying conditions of different health issues, or more like the causes of the causes, both for physical health issues as well as mental health issues. And this is a complex, of course, set of conditions that either contribute to us as individuals and us as a community being healthy, or those conditions can also contribute to us being unhealthy. And so the Wellbeing Committee looked into that work that has been done in other places in creating communities of belonging. And one of them you can see here was a book by an author named Peter Block called Community, the Structure of Belonging. And Peter Block mentions that the real transformation is having residents who may be strangers up to now, having conversations they are not used to having with each other, and learning to trust each other and decide together how to make a community better for everyone. And then secondly, they looked at the work of Dr. Tony Eiten, and he speaks about how creating a community of belonging involves changing any narrative that exists around a community of exclusion to one of inclusion. And a change in the narrative can lead to a change in policies and systems and practices. And those changes can then lead to changes in the conditions that support good health for everyone in a community of belonging. And communities of exclusion tend to languish, where communities of inclusion tend to thrive, as do its people. And finally, Heather McGee in her book, The Sum of Us, and she talks about something that she refers to as the solidarity dividend. And these are the benefits we all gain when people come together across our differences to accomplish what none of us can simply do on our own. And it creates a new vision for the future in which we finally realize that there is more than just a zero-sum game. In fact, the zero-sum game really is just a myth. Next slide, please. So the next thing the committee talked about is they developed the initiatives defining, well, what is a community? Because it can be defined in a lot of different ways. It can be defined by geography, can be defined by a work setting or a school or any place else that could be a physical definition of a community. But it can also be defined by a group of people who may not have a geographic or physical location in common, but there's something else that binds them together as individuals, and that could be considered a community. So as the committee discussed this, they said, well, let's think about it for now, at least, in terms of geography, perhaps the 11 municipalities that we have in our county. And this is going to be very community-driven, and it's going to be self-defined. So as each area within our county decides they'd maybe like to take on this initiative, they can define themselves what their community is. They could make it larger, for example, than the boundaries of their municipality, or they could make it smaller. It's up to them, whatever they decide to do. And so different communities we know are going to be ready to start this at different points. And so as they look to engage people, it's really kind of boils down to a question of, if you ask somebody, what community are you from, what do they say? You know, if they don't live in Chaska, but they say, well, I'm from Chaska, well then, sure, we'd include them, right? Because this is what they consider their community. So it is not intended to replace anything that's currently going on in any of our communities, or to take anything over, or to bring anything new, but rather perhaps it can help to amplify what's already going on in a good way in a community, to build that community of belonging. And so each of our communities we know will take on a little different flavor for how they're going to go about doing this work. And that's perfectly fine. And they don't even have to call it a community of belonging if they don't want to. They can call it anything they want. But I think as long as they're looking to look at creating an inclusive community for everyone, both the current people who live in their community as well as the future residents, which we know are coming, then it seems like they would fit with what this initiative is all about. Next slide, please. So then we looked a little bit at how this initiative would be implemented. And again, we know that different communities will take their own journey on how they're going to do this. They'll be starting at different points in time. So we want to have flexibility to really meet each community where it's at. And so that's certainly what we intend to do. It's going to be very community-driven. The county health department is just here to implement the community health improvement plan that was developed by residents, and we want to support that in whatever way we can, whatever way each community wants to do this. We also, though, want to make sure that we support it in a way that the initiative becomes very sustainable in every community that does this. And I guess in terms of that, we do have some resources that we can bring to the communities that need them, but if those resources dry up, we don't want the initiative to dry up in the community. So we really want to build the capacity of every community to carry this on, whether public health department is around with resources in the future or not. And the resources, some examples of some of those that we could provide for communities that want them, and there could be many others, but some of them I know here in Chaska have been groups that you've worked with who have done this type of work in other communities, such as Marnita's Table. I know we've done work with them as a public health department, as has the city of Chaska and the ISD 112 school district in the past. So there's an organization that does this type of work and is available as a resource if a community would like to engage with them. Another is the YMCA's Equity Innovation Center of Excellence, which again, I know the city has done some work with, and the county has as well through our Health and Human Services Division. And that's another group that has done this type of work in other communities around, particularly the metropolitan area in Roseville and Forest Lake and Hastings and Bloomington and Edina. And we have some communities in Carver County that are looking to have them come on board and help them with their initiative as well. And then lastly, we have a opportunity or a method, I guess, for having conversations about whatever topics are important for a community to talk about. And if you want to go to the next slide, Kevin, the third bullet point there, living room conversations. And so these are small group conversations to talk about whatever topic they want to talk about. And this is a national and international organization. We've hosted county-wide conversations to introduce our communities of belonging people around the county to what this approach and method is all about. Just today we finished a week-long series of sessions. We've done topics on belonging, we've done them on communicating with care, civic renewal, talking to strangers. We've done them on a variety of topics, and we're doing them monthly right now. And so it's an opportunity for people to not only participate and talk about the topic if they're interested, but also an opportunity for people in our communities to see how this method is used to have conversations with people in a safe way. And it's all based upon, I'm not there to convince you to my point of view on this issue. I'm here to genuinely listen to your point of view, just as you're there to listen to my point of view. And hopefully in that way we can maybe bridge our differences and find ways to work together as we try to build this community of belonging. So those will continue as well. And then another example, well, I guess whatever else a community might need, we're very open to seeing how we can fulfill that need. So one example of that, and maybe I'll have you go to the next slide, Kevin. These are the 8 communities where we receive initial interest by at least a small handful of people in each community to say, yeah, I'd like to see this happen in my community. And Cologne is one I wanted to point out in terms of one that has utilized some other resources. So the one little item I gave you that kind of looks like a bookmark, this was a leave behind item that they said this would be helpful if we had a leave behind item. And so we took the logo and the tagline that we use and put it on the front and on the back. We just put 4 of the key messages that we often use, and we just created it in a way that it could be used in any community that wants to use it. But they also started their initiative in Cologne. They said, well, let's see if we can get a pulse on what people think right now about Cologne, the people that call this their community. Do they feel like they belong here? And if so, why? Or if they feel like they don't belong here, tell us that. And why don't you feel like you belong here? What's missing? So from that then, they were able to start now working on initiatives that point to the key things that they found in their survey. And they didn't have any money to do the survey, so we were able to provide the funding so that survey could be done for them, so they'd have that baseline information. So that's another example of the resources that we're able to make available. Next slide. So as I've been working on this now for just about a year, I'm always amazed. Almost every day I hear this idea of belonging and welcoming communities and inclusive communities, and whether it's those exact words or something else, it just keeps coming up over and over again. So it's very exciting to see so many people who are interested in doing this type of work all over Minnesota, all over the country, and even in other parts of the world. But this is one item I saw a few months ago by a woman from Minneapolis, and she wrote an op-ed in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. And she stated, first and foremost, I am a human being just like you. Like many people, I have been caught up in othering people due to where they live or other characteristics. It never felt good, it never felt true, and now I know why. I am all these people. All these people are me. Many of us suffer from othering, but the cure is simply the humanity in all people. And then she went on to say, do we have differences? Of course. Do people make terrible choices sometimes? Of course. However, at our core, regardless of our choices or traumas, we want the same basic things in life. And when you catch yourself judging other people or wishing them harm, pause, breathe, and repeat to yourself a few times, just like me. So that, I hope, give you a little flavor for what communities of belonging is all about. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's kind of this broad concept, and there's not a recipe for how it's done. Each community kind of decides that for themselves. But we've been talking with staff and other residents from here in Chaska for several months, and how they might want to kind of organize themselves to get this started in Chaska. And they said it might be good to come and talk to this commission tonight and share with you what's happening there, and see how this fits with the mission that you have, and if there's a role for the commission to play or you as individuals to play, however you'd like to do that. The committee itself is meeting again on Monday, just to kind of see where we're at, what's the next steps. And they said we want to wait till after the Human Rights Commission has heard about this first. So with that, I'm open for any questions you have or anything else that you'd like to hear from me tonight.
You know, when you were talking, I couldn't help but think of the words that the Human Rights Commission use, and how we wish to reach out to our community, to be a bridge, to be an organization that can partner with so many different folks here in Chaska to make this their community. So I think there's a good fit here, but I'm anxious to hear what the other commission members have to say and how you think our role as a commission can be with this initiative. So who wants to go? Who wants to say something? Oh, please.
I actually have a question.
Excellent
Martin.
questions.
Go ahead.
Are you sure? Okay. So I thought that the quote that you ended your presentation with was phenomenal. This is a fantastic initiative. I absolutely loved the living room conversation, and I've been trying to bring the living room conversations here in Chaska for so long, and nobody knew about them, so I'm so glad that actually this is happening, because the principles that those conversations take place, like the surrounding principles, like you have to be, respect each other and not talk over and not, those are so beautiful, and they can be applied in so many instances. So, and I've seen spin-offs of like living room conversations in other topics too, in other meetings, so it's fantastic. Now, so this is basically, if I understand correctly, so the initiative is exploring how Chaska, I'll take Chaska just because we live here, right? How we can become a community where everybody feels like they belong, right? And I go back to the quote that you ended your presentation with, which talks about not othering people. What I was thinking is that it is a little bit privileged to say, well, you are just like me, and we're all human beings, and we're all kind and, and nice to each other, but not recognizing differences in each other is at the core of not building a community. So I guess my question to you is, how does your group and how does this initiative honor and recognize differences in people who are Chaska residents? So for example, I'm an immigrant. I'm a Romanian American. I got my citizenship, but I came here, my first in my family, to be in the US, right? So the fact that I'm an immigrant is a huge part of my identity as a member of this community, right? So for someone to say, oh, I'm kind, and I am all those things. It's not recognizing the fact that I bring a ton, like a cultural heritage with me that I want to be seen. I want to be celebrated, right? And I would like to share that with my neighbors and the community. So how do you go about recognizing those differences? And I feel like this is my soapbox, so I apologize, you guys, but yeah, but like, because my neighbors are from all walks of life, so, and this is that community that sees the kindness in the other person, and does not recognize differences.
Yeah, well, I think you raised some really good points, and that is a very important part of this, is that not only do we recognize our similarities, but we do recognize our differences. And we embrace those differences and we celebrate those differences, and that's how we make people feel like they belong, no matter how different they are from the majority of the community or the minority of the community or whatever it is. They're recognized for who they are, and they're appreciated and valued and made like they feel they belong. Now, how exactly you do that, that really is up to each community. However you would like to do that and you think is the best way to do that in Chaska is what we want to support, because how you do it here might be different than they do in Waconia or Chanhassen or somewhere else. And that's okay. Every community is a little different, and you have to kind of find that out. The other thing that I would say is, this work, there's really no beginning or no end. It's something we always have to focus on, and therefore it can move at whatever pace is the right pace in the community. And a part of that, of course, is people who want to contribute to it. People have busy lives. They may not be able to give as much time as maybe they have passion for it, and that's okay. There's no finish line here that you have to get this project done by a certain date. But really, it is however communities want to do that and what you think is best, and we want to support you in any way we can to make that happen.
Follow-up question? I apologize. What does support mean from you? Like financial support, or
Yes.
what would that mean?
Yes, exactly. I was talking to Elise and Sarah the other day, and I said, we're very fortunate that we have several different funding streams that are available to support this type of work, and we haven't had that before. And we don't know how long we're going to have it, but we want to make as much hay as we can while we do have it. And it's not millions of dollars, but yeah, we have a fair amount of money that we can contribute to the work that communities want to do if they don't have the, financial ability to do that in themselves. And again, you take a community like Cologne, they wanted to do a survey. They didn't have a few $1,000s to do a survey, and we did, so we did it for them. Excuse me. And so, yeah, we do have financial resources to help in whatever way we can.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Martin?
Sorry, I lost my thought because you talk so long. I'm just kidding.
I know.
Kidding. I haven't seen you in a while. I didn't see you last time, so I had to give you a hard time. I had the privilege of listening to your last meeting with the Chaska community group, because my wife is part of the group.
Sure, good.
And so I was sitting there just listening. She had it on speakerphone, right? I had to. So I have a kind of different perspective, kind of what you're kind of looking for. And I guess, you know, how does this group work with Chaska Cares or whatever's going on now? How do we participate? Is one of us like join the group and kind of work as a liaison, you know, or do we get more of the community involved? Because there are a lot more people who want to volunteer and do things such as food handouts or whatever that may be. And they only want to volunteer once. They don't want to do it like 57 times or so. I think we should look into it and how we participate for those of us who want to do that. I think we, you know, I don't know all the members on the citizen committee there, but they all had good ideas, and I think they're all, I don't know who they all are, so I'm going to call them senior representatives of Chaska. Those have been around for a while. That's what I'm going to use. I didn't hear every voice, and I don't know every name. But I think we have an opportunity to do some good, more, and kind of help direct it a little bit. So I don't know, but I'm free to have a conversation with whoever knows more, or whatever.
I just have a practical question. The communities that you said were interested, are those like being represented by city government or community? Like, what do those groups look like? Who's kind of popping up in those communities and want to be?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit more about that. I would say that right now there's some that are a little bit more active than others. Like I said, Cologne just took this and ran with it, and they've been doing this for a year. And in terms of, it's really a lot of, a broad cross-sector of their community who are engaged just as residents. But they've also had a relationship with the city there. They've presented to the city council several times, and I think it was last week or the week before, I'm losing track. One of their city council members who had a very strong interest in this and was meeting with them, but not in an official capacity as a designee from the city council, has now been designated by the city council to be their representative on this group in Cologne. And then in Victoria, one of the staff at the city heard about this, got very excited about it, asked me to come to present to the city council, and I didn't realize, but he had put together a, I guess technically it was a resolution, not a proclamation, for the city to support the initiative. And so they passed this right away on the first time I presented, and it wasn't my idea, it was his. And so then we went back and said, well, what does that mean now? We've got some beautiful words on paper here that you support this, but what does that mean? Well, for them, what they're looking to do, although they've had to put their plans on hold for a few months because of some changes in staffing, is they want to work on internally within city government, similar to what I think Chaska has done with the YMCA for the staff and the city council and perhaps their commissions. Well, simultaneously, there's been a few community members who want to make sure that it just isn't within city government, it is community-wide. And so they're kind of working hand in hand to do this within the city and in the community. And again, I think they're probably going to pick up the ball again, probably in the first of the year, because they've had staff turnover. In Waconia, they got a lot of involvement from school people because they have also worked with the YMCA internally for a couple of years with their school board and their school staff on the methods that the YMCA equity Inclusion Center does. And so now they want to work with the Y to take that out into the community, as they've seen happen in communities like Hastings and Roseville and others.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of the approach they're taking. They do have a city staff person who's a part of the group, so whether or not, you know, it'll reach a point where it becomes more of an official involvement on the behalf of city government, I guess time will tell. In Chanhassen, they're kind of at a similar stage as Chaska, just kind of trying to figure out how to organize and how to get more people involved. Like Chaska, they also have a city council member who's been a part of the group, but not in their official capacity as a city council necessarily. It's more like, I'm here as a very interested resident, and oh, by the way, I'm also a city council member. I haven't been designated as a liaison from the city to this group, but here I am. So I don't know if that helps answer your questions.
Yeah, thank you.
I was just going to add, I have attended a few of the meetings earlier on, and then was unable to for the more recent ones. I'm hoping to get back in soon. But while I was there, I would say there was a broad mixture of people, both maybe, you know, names you would know that are from the city or are very active in the community, that our whole city would know those people. And then there was people who I had never met before, and really brought some different perspectives to things that we haven't heard those voices before. And I really appreciated that. Some of the things we had talked about were, you know, great things in this community, like Chaska Cares or the Human Rights Commission, and how can we kind of elevate or amplify that so that it is really effective in the community by being, we have some ready-made groups who would be able to kind of implement different programs or sponsor them or something, and then partner with the communities of belonging to, you know, create ideas of things that that the community really wants or needs. So I was really excited about the teamwork that everyone was really hoping to strive for.
I am part of the Housing Collaborative, and the Housing Collaborative grew out of the health improvement plan of, I think, 5 years ago now. It was before COVID, and it kicked off a large group of people from our community met. We talked about what a comprehensive health improvement plan looked for our county, and addressing one of those goals of living, where's my sign? Housing, transportation, and well-being. And so the collaborative grew out of that initial desire for folks to come together and talk about housing. And it is sustained today, so that's, in it continued through COVID via Zoom. And I think the most amazing thing is that we all still get together on a monthly basis to talk about the housing and the impact it has on Carver County community. It's been sustained and supported by agency support, not what you would call members of the community hosting it from their living room. So I see that any piece going forward has to have kind of a rallying anchor to kind of help move the discussions along, and what kind of discussions could possibly occur. in thinking about what happened at our last month's meeting, we heard from Mikasa representatives that they would like to have chief, I coined it, chief chats. I thought that was clever. Being discussions with our police chief and our sheriff about issues that the Latino community is currently experiencing. So I thought about that possibly being a dialogue or a discussion or an avenue for this group, Communities of Belonging, to take, working with, well, specifically Mikasa, but also with the Human Rights Commission. So I think what we need to talk about, and we don't need to have a decision tonight, but what I wanted to do was expose us to this discussion, this opportunity for us to talk and to think internally about how we could partner, if it's a natural fit. And then it sounds like we've got a potential two-person insider. Definitely Jen is on, but you might be just sitting in the room, Martin.
I'm sitting a fly on the wall in the room.
Yeah. To think about and to prompt us to consider how and what initiative we should take.
Well, and we did start a community partnership committee.
Yes, we
So
did.
I think that would maybe fit into that conversation as well.
Absolutely. Is that on our agenda for a little bit later?
It is. There's not a lot of action to report yet, but.
I really think that everyone needs to know about what we're talking about. Does that make sense? I think we've
Yeah.
got pieces. Since you've been in a lot of meetings, you know more than me. But pieces of things, and I think the more we can get involved, or at least know when the next conversation is that we can participate in, that will help a lot. I think we have a lot of value to bring to the table, and probably some leadership for some of those things that are here. Not that I'm trying to give anybody else more work or whatever, but I'm saying that, you know, being the body that we are, we could really drive and help move things along other than just River City Days. I only say that because I worked on that, right? But I
And it
think
was
we can make,
very important work.
I think we could make a bigger impact, or at least help support that, so.
Great. So tell us about the next meeting opportunity.
So the group that I mentioned that has been engaged, they're meeting on Monday morning. I believe it's at 10 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken. They'll meet via Zoom again, just to kind of see, well, what do we think is next in terms of getting this initiative launched in Chaska? And I think that, you know, it can take whatever form seems right. I know that there certainly was some conversations about should it be city-led, city government, city Human Rights Commission, some department, some staff person, or should it be more resident-led with the city as a partner? I don't know. That's up to this community to decide what seems to make sense to you. But I think those are some of the questions that they're going to try to get maybe closer to answering and seeing if they can figure out a way to get things started. And I think, you know, the example that you gave about Mikasa having a desire to meet with law enforcement here, you know, this communities of belonging is such a broad umbrella that something like that certainly fits. I mean, it's all about that, building that trusting relationship between an agency like law enforcement and a particular segment of your community, and that hopefully results in positive things that makes everyone feel more like they belong in a trusting relationship. And so as different communities are doing this, and we talk about inclusive communities, the word inclusive kind of implies everyone, but it doesn't mean you have to tackle everything at once. You know, you can start with a certain population group or a certain issue and tackle that, and then when you're ready to move on to another population group or another issue, you can do that. And it all falls under this big umbrella of an inclusive, welcoming, belonging community for everyone. Or if you want to, take on all your residents at once. That's up to you too. How ambitious are you?
Chair Carlson, can I add something?
Yes, please.
From a city staff perspective, I think we've had a number of conversations about how the city proper fits into all of this. And I think, the Chaska Cares initiative is something that's been floated. Does this kind of fall under that? And I think we've decided as a staff group that Chaska Cares is really that's a staff-led initiative. That's an opportunity for our staff to volunteer and get involved. Next year, we'll be hiring a community engagement coordinator that might be able to take on some of that Chaska Cares role. And, given all the other groups that are participating, we don't feel that it's the city's role to lead this, but, groups like this may want to be a part of it, and city staff it may be appropriate for city staff to also be involved in the conversation. So I just wanted to provide that.
Great. That's important for us to think about and know. I am not available to participate in a Zoom call on Monday at 10 a.m. Are you?
I am.
Could you be our designated individual to
Yep, I would be more
participate?
than happy to.
Have you heard enough from us and from Pat that you can listen, hear, participate?
What I was thinking is to listen to what the group says and just give an idea of the meeting that just happened, the presentation that you delivered. I don't think we made any decisions, so
No.
right now, and we're maybe get the feedback from the group to see what role the Human Rights Commission could play in this initiative and what the desired role is for the Human Rights Commission to be. Is it a partnership? Is it leading the initiative? What would that look like? And at least if I understand correctly, then the city of Chaska will be supporting this initiative, endorsing it.
I think we would find it's important to be a participant as some staff member. Marshall Grange, our Parks and Rec director, has been involved, as well as some of our other Parks and Rec staff, just because he helped to lead the Chaska Cares. So I think there is city staff that are interested in participating in it, but not leading it necessarily.
Right. Got it. Okay. So just, if it's okay with you, just to ask the feedback from the group, what they would like the Human Rights Commission, what the support would be from the Human Rights Commission that they would like to see. So.
That'd be great if you're willing
Yeah.
to do that.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you so
This was
much.
fantastic, by the way.
So,
Thank you.
thanks, Pat, for being
Well,
here tonight.
Thank you for
Does
having
anybody
me.
have any questions for Pat? Other additional questions?
I have one, I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
From a public health perspective, this initiative is important on its own, but it is also important in its impact on public health. Is there something that you all are looking for, or any metrics or outcomes you guys are watching for as this is happening across these different cities?
Yeah, and I think as each community starts to see how they want to make this happen in their community, then we may look at how can we measure things in that community. But overall, as a county, leading up to the Community Health Improvement Plan, we always do a community health assessment. And one of the things that we do is we do a survey of adult residents. And certainly within that survey, there were measures that would give some indication of how people are feeling about their sense of belonging, whether they feel isolated, discriminated, anything like that. So that survey will be repeated probably late 2023, next year, because it's time for us to do another community health assessment. So that'll be one way we'll be measuring this on a county level, but we also want to look for other ways that we haven't completely decided yet, as well as help local communities evaluate what their impact has been.
Thank you.
And Elise, I assume you'll be able to provide her with a Zoom link?
I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll do it right now, so I don't forget.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Good.
Well, super quick, very last minute question, last question. So the living room conversations that you mentioned, the funding for that, because there has to be a trained person who is facilitating those conversations. So would your organization be willing to fund some of that? Should they happen?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, I am one of the trained facilitators for living room conversations. So if you want to utilize me, I'm available at no charge.
Oh, we've got
but-
that on tape.
Yes, absolutely. That's one of the reasons I decided to go through their host training, because I thought, maybe somebody could use a host, and if they do, I'm available. If they don't, that's fine. My feelings aren't hurt. But the other thing is, if you have local people who'd like to become hosts and get some training, and it's not a PhD program, but you certainly do get some tips for how to facilitate in the methodology they use. There's a cost to get that training, and we could help support people to go through that if they need that type of financial support to go through the training. In fact, I think their next cohort of trainees is coming up this fall, so.
That's fantastic. Great.
Okay, great. Again, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Look forward to talking with you more.
Yeah.
Okay,
you.
great. You're welcome to stay.
I didn't even get to see the rest of your agenda. You got some good stuff, I should say.
Oh,
Always.
always.
You're welcome to go home to your family as well.
So, our agenda, back to the agenda. We've got the minutes of July 28th that need approval. May I have a motion to approve? Have you read the minutes? I'm sure you have.
So moved.
Excellent, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Kaylee, seconded by Juana. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carried. Elise, can you provide us with an update on our financials?
Certainly, on the last page of your agenda is the updated financials through essentially last week. There have been no further expenses that you've seen since last month, which leaves you a balance of about just shy of $2,200 in available budget for you to spend. And I will make a quick note, at the request of the Human Rights Commission last month, we did add $6,500 to the budget last year, so it is included in the preliminary budget that the council will be seeing over the next month.
Nice. Is there any questions for Elise regarding our dollars?
Is the River City Days, that last thing, is that just what we had approved, or is this specific things we
Yeah.
purchased?
So, we did spend $50 for the booth. The remaining $150, there was a budget of $200 total. I'm waiting for any invoices that people might have on that. And so I've left it in there as a budget item, knowing that we have just kind of wrapped up River City Days.
Got it, okay, thank you.
I was going to ask, do we have any outstanding invoices for River City Days?
We do.
I see.
It won't exceed $150, but it takes time for me to put that stuff together. It'll show up.
Okay. May I have a motion then to approve our treasurer's report?
So moved.
Motion by Hannah, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jen, is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Ayes carry. Speaking of River City Days, anything else that we want to add to River City Days? I will just share that my Saturday afternoon was greatly reduced by the contributions of all that were at the booth. Thank you very much. I did end up at Twin Cities Orthopedics early Sunday morning, so,
Should have gone Saturday afternoon.
no.
Chair.
This is what I, oh, maybe I shouldn't say this, because I don't, never mind.
I'm glad you got it checked out.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, all is well. But again, another good event, but certainly I think, Martin, I wanted to follow up on something you said during our discussion with communities of belonging. And that is the extended value that we bring to the Human Rights Commission by being present at River City Days. And how can we make that time that we are in our community more meaningful? And I heard good feedback about the game. That was a lot of fun. Competing with somebody across the way that had just small frozen pops, and we had the big frozen pops, was probably good for us. Having the equipment, the technical savvy to have ice-cold things remain ice-cold for long periods of time over every other booth that was there. I thought that was excellent. But it does bring up the point of how can we meaningfully communicate, have dialogue with our residents in the city of Chaska. And is River City Days the best place to do that? Or are we just there to play the game and spin? And how many times did that child come and eat?
I'm still triggered.
Okay, never mind, I won't, never mind. Okay, all right, so moving right along.
Wait, can I
Oh,
just-
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to give my friend Martin a shout out because he was hustling popsicles and keeping everybody calm and rational, and was just a good partner to have in the booth. So I just feel like you also put in a whole lot of hours, and I appreciate both of you for all the work that you did, and you want to be on the committee.
I thought it was amazing that we were the only booth that had a screen, and it had pictures of our events. I was just, I was impressed, Martin, for how you made that happen. That was incredible.
I didn't do it by myself. I guess I would say I don't want to downplay River City Days or any of these other events. It came out wrong when I said it. I should have thought about it before I said it. But I only picked that one because I worked on it. I didn't want to like push anything else down. I think we have the ability to make greater impact. I think River City Days is important. I think a lot of people enjoyed it. For me, I see kids all the time, so all they want is food from me, right? Candy and so
And food
it
and
was fun to
candy.
give them those things and get them excited. You know, how do I put this? I like to have fun, right? You don't get to do that often. And I saw some other booths that were like, eh. It's like, you're supposed to be out here having fun. It's hot. You know, what can we do to get you excited? And then if there are conversations that happen about who we are, great. I think, you know, for our young crowd, because I deal with young people all the time, so I see young crowd, I think technology really kind of, if they can see it on their phone, if they can see next year, if we can get the TV to work consistently, you can see that there, whatever, music or whatever, however it gets engaged, I'm all for it. So that's my 2 cents. So anything we can do different next year, let me know. Let us know.
Okay.
Or
Oh,
not
wait,
do.
Wait, have you signed up for next year already?
I think Martin just volunteered you both to be on the committee.
Voluntold, I think. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I was surprised by the number of conversations, especially with the parents that were like watching the popsicles. Some of them had popsicles, but were like, oh, I went to this event, or I didn't know you all put that on, or those kind of conversations. I think, I think there's things that we could do, like add. Work a little ahead of time. I could add some questions to the quiz wheel or something. There's things we could,
Yep.
you know, do to kind of spark more of those conversations, but, I had more of those this year than I had last year. I think just because more people were at the booth.
Yep.
Yep.
But, yeah, I think there's more for sure we could do to.
And I think that River City Days is about fun. I mean, I think that there's nothing wrong with us having a more lighthearted
Yeah.
event like that. We still do have some conversations. It's not like as in-depth as maybe the Holocaust survivor or something, you know.
Right.
But I think it really brings awareness to a lot of people, like you were saying, you know, that they didn't realize that we were involved with certain events and stuff. And so I appreciate that about it, but I do think since I've been on the commission, this was the most fun year. So good job, you guys. And I mean, it was a great booth this year and really did draw people in. So
Yeah.
we need, you know, when we bring people in, then we can have conversations. So that's great.
I'm so sorry I was not there. I'm so sorry. I was there in spirit, though. In spirit.
We
I was
felt you.
living vicariously through your road trip.
One of the things that several people engaged with me when I was there about was our backdrop, which was the artwork that was created during our Pride event. And I know that it probably was returned to the basement or maybe back to Parks and Rec
Or in my office.
or
Well,
in,
it's safe there.
it's, yeah. But I would really like to have either pieces of it framed or put on some type of board that we can, because of the length, maybe cut, I'm sorry, I don't want to damage artwork, but somehow make it manageable that we can bring that out and have it in our community. So I don't know what your thoughts are. I mean, that was always the goal, was that we would have it and we would put it in the library, or we would take it to the curling center, or we would put it at the community center. So, Elise, could I ask you to follow up? Is that something that we should be doing? Is that something that the city can help us do, or should we take the canvas to a frame shop?
Why don't I do some follow-up and come back with some options for you for next month? How's that
Excellent.
sound? Okay.
I think that's a really good example of a communities of belonging type thing, because I love when people would come up and say, oh, I worked on that part, or I did that, you know, or they tell us a story about their part.
handprint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just really great to be, you know, feeling a sense of community when they would recognize, oh, this was important. Look, it's up here now, you know,
Yeah.
and that was a great thing to bring up, that we can make it somewhat more permanent, I think.
Would something like that be done next year at the next Pride event? I don't know who's on the committee, I'm just throwing this out there.
Another community art event, you
What-
mean?
yeah.
Yeah, we've done one every year, so I
What
think.
pops in my head is, could we put a date on this one?
Sure.
Yeah.
And then if we do it again next year, put a date in the corner, and then every so often bring them all out, or whatever it is, maybe it's not River City Days, wherever it may be, and hang them, depending upon where we're having whatever event, or whatever that may be. Does that make sense?
We've done some sort of community art the 2 years that we've held it.
Every year.
Do we have the first one still?
No.
I don't, it was like flags. I
Yeah.
don't know, and I
They-
don't know what happened to
They
it.
were put on the fence around City Square Park. And then somebody had the opportunity to take them home and enjoy them in the privacy of their own home.
But yes, I think, I think that's a great idea, that we start, and we build them, I mean, then it's a way, as we have future prides, we can bring some of that artwork back too, to see the different ways in which the community is celebrating.
I'm just throwing this out here.
I believe the flags are actually in the basement.
Is that God? Are you there, God?
Yes, no. Just Kevin.
So,
Can't help it.
so
So apparently we do have the flags
I thought they all
from
walked to somebody's.
2021.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. So there, we do have some
Sees
artwork.
all, knows all.
Could you, I'm assuming we're having MLK breakfast at,
Ooh, that would be a great opportunity.
yeah, can we
Yes.
hang them up on the wall in the back?
Well,
Or whatever we
the,
have.
the event center has very limiting rules on how to hang things, but last year, Kevin was very creative in getting command strips and hooks. And so I think we could probably do a combination, if it's not framed by then, it would be, certainly we could do something like that at MLK.
To Martin's point, so the River City Days, I think it's fantastic exposure for the Human Rights Commission and to show that we exist in the community for people who don't even know that we exist. And also to showcase the work that we've done. And to Martin's point, those other conversations and other events need to happen as well. So that by the time River City Days come, then we can showcase those initiatives that we have organized that have made an impact on the community. That's kind of, yeah.
I think it would be
And
great.
Pride was the biggest one. That was fantastic.
It would be great to maybe have a list of upcoming things and invite people to,
Right,
to
right.
future events,
That goes to programs, calendar, yeah.
which makes us have to be more organized.
We're working on that, though. That was part of
Yes.
the strategic plan conversation,
Yes.
so.
Okay,
Can I throw one last thing out? It doesn't have to be decided today, but I want to get it out there before I forget. Can we start investing in things that will help us do our events? Does that make sense? So whatever that may be. So every year, if we're looking, I'm going to throw out a TV because we had a TV. But if every year we're looking for a TV, or every year we're looking for an easel, can we just buy it and start storing this stuff so we can use it and it's readily accessible? Does that make sense? I know we have a little bit more money next year, but can we think about that in the future? Whatever that means.
so basically, putting together a wish list, for- I'll call it that, but maybe wish is too much, a needs list of things that we need to have.
It's like office supplies, kind of like, right? Yeah.
I know the city has this and they have that, but instead of us searching for it or asking Park and Rec, we have it, so we just go get it and then we use it at whatever it may be.
Along those lines too, I think sooner rather than later, we should think about swag for next year so that it gets ordered and shipped to us in time, so we have that.
We have about 88 bands left, if I did my math correctly.
Okay, so we would need to, if, and I know that there's another voice in this room, but I think if we plan on looking at swag opportunity in September, ordering it in October, we should get the invoice by November. We could pay for it in December. So any money that we have in this year's budget could be, could purchase the swag for next year. That might be a timeline that we should think about. Last year, our commission member, Lisa and Seth Spreadberry looked at fun things to order. And I noticed some of those fun things were ordered by others along the information, or along, at other booths. So those little ducks, was it some sort of a spinner that they had found? Although spinners don't seem to be as popular as they were. But whatever they had found. So probably we need to look at the kinds of things that we would want to have again, or do we just stick with the tried and true fan?
I think we could look at different options. I'm not on that committee, but I think we can look at
Who is on that committee?
that's Martin.
That's
and
Martin
Hannah.
and Hannah.
And he has just admitted that his job is to entertain children at all times. So he probably has some great insights on, and we have a young
I have
mother
children,
here.
yeah.
I mean, also a young father. So, yeah, I would think that maybe they could come up with some ideas.
So do you think that you would have the opportunity to do that before September's meeting?
Got a month from now?
That'd be a
Sure.
month from now,
Just to look at and decide what,
and make recommendations.
yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Was there anything else you wanted to mention before we leave over City Days, Martin? Okay,
Please move on.
please move on. MLK,
That was the look I was
MLK.
getting.
Or am I giving the report?
I'll do it for you.
I was not here for all of this work, so I would appreciate if you do.
Our connection or opportunity to connect with Justice Page's office is not necessarily, is unavailable to us this year, so he would not be an opportune speaker. We did receive 2 recommendations from WANA. One was Dr. Jay Williams. He had been the Minneapolis College Chief's Diversity Officer. I reached out, and I'm having a great deal of difficulty in reaching out to him. I reached out to Minneapolis Community and Technical College. He has left that institution. I tried my LinkedIn connection to reach him, and I've had no response. So I wanted to bring that to us tonight.
Okay.
But the possibility was that the current Trumaine, perhaps is how he spells or pronounces his first name, Dr. Trumaine Lindsay Jr. is the current Vice President of Equity and Inclusion at Minneapolis College. And he responded to my message asking for Dr. Williams and said, perhaps I could help. But I did not want to go that route until somebody, if you have a connection to Dr. Williams?
I do. I do.
Okay.
We're going to see them tomorrow.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah, so I can definitely talk to him.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Stacy Kumar Williams?
Nelson.
Nelson, I'm sorry, I had Williams.
Nelson Kumar, actually.
Right. Oh. Okay. Has also reached out to our group and has offered to be a member of the planning commission, or planning group for the MLK. So pass that on to you. She's excited about doing that and would like very much to help us think about ways to connect.
Stacy Kumar Nelson?
Nelson Kumar.
Nelson, now I'm having it. She has worked with the Human Rights Commission and a couple of other things where she actually brought the idea of the Race, the Power of Illusion series. She brought that and presented to the commission and then helped quite a bit in the planning for that. And she's also given us some ideas about like speakers before for Martin Luther King Day and some other things. She's been a great support as a community member.
She works as the Community Impact Director for the Twin Cities region of Comcast.
Nice. Are we looking for other community members to join this committee? To join the MLK prep?
We
That's a
haven't
good
had that
discussion.
discussion, but
I was surprised when Stacy
Yeah.
said, I'd like to help you.
That's fantastic.
And so, sure, I would think that'd be okay.
I want to put a
as-
limit on it, though.
Pardon me?
So you might want to put a limit on it so it doesn't spin out of control.
And I think that Jen, as the coordinator of that committee work, would be able to limit that.
I'm just saying.
do you have people in mind that you were?
I do
you
have one
it-
person in mind,
Okay,
yeah.
well, we can discuss that later, and I can reach out to them
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Can I throw two things out before we move on? And then I'll shut up because I know time is getting late. Can we, I'm throwing this out there. You can say yes, no, you don't even have to answer now, and don't answer now. Think about it in your group. Can we tackle Black History Month and Women's History in that same event? I'm not saying put on like a 5-hour presentation, but could we just throw something that way, whether it's something on the walls or something along those lines? I think for me personally, we miss those things. I am for MLK. My name is Martin Luther Hubbard. Very close, right? It's time to evolve. Does that make sense? I'm not saying there's anything, I'm just saying it's time to evolve and take the next step. Can we, and if we can't add anything here and we choose not to, can we do something for those 2 months some other time? Does that make sense? I'm throwing it out there for everybody to think about, not expecting an answer. Thank you for your time.
But that helps with the calendar, actually. If you think
Actually,
about it,
I was
right?
going to say,
Yeah.
I have something to add to that
Yeah.
under the calendar programs item
Yeah.
on our agenda.
Because it could be the February event.
I should have read the paper, sorry. I didn't.
No,
No,
you didn't
that's
have a
great,
piece of
no.
paper. Immigrant Voices. The only thing I would add about that is that if we are going to think about doing a program like that in 2023, we should begin planning and thinking about it sooner as opposed to later. Particularly if we're going to look outside of our own budgeted dollar amount and tap resources in our community. I understand that there are several opportunities to ask for some money from a couple of our local organizations coming up, not Rotary this year, but others, like the Lions. And it would be timely for us to do that ask within the next couple of months.
Even the Communities of Belonging Initiative, they could be a financial supporter for this initiative, because it does kind of fit into this initiative too.
Absolutely.
But I do have an update. So we're meeting with Kevin. Kevin organized, so thank you, Kevin. Organized the meeting. We're meeting Monday at noon. It's Hannah, Mary Hernandez, and Lisa from the Chaska Historical Center, History Center. And I also suggested bringing in one more person. His name is Theodore Stan. He is the founder and the president of the Immigration Research Forum in Washington, D.C. And he worked with HORA, so that's how I know him, on created a series of questions thematically, like split by themes, that we could pick as a group when we meet moving forward to put a set of questions together to do those recordings of community members who have an immigration story to share. And that's kind of the project that we're working, that is part of the Immigrant Voices. And have Kevin just jump in as you see fit, and have those recordings available for the Immigrant Voices. Chaska celebrates Immigrant Voices Month, for example. So instead of bringing in, like we did before, someone from Minneapolis, right, another organization, we actually create our own story here and share it with the community. So that's kind of the thought behind it. Yeah, I'm super excited about it. So we'll let you know more about it after the meeting on Monday and see what the plan is moving forward. But that could be an event in itself, and then have some guest speakers along the way and put in a living room conversation there. That could fill like a whole month. Yeah? We just need to decide on a time, I guess, but of the month.
Excellent. We'll
Oh,
look
yeah.
for your report then.
Yeah, totally.
Pride celebration.
Nothing to report other than the conversation we had that was kind of tangentially related to Pride.
Thank you. Community partnership.
So that's me. And I was asking Elise that I did not write down the names of the folks who were volunteered to be on that.
In addition to you, it's Commissioner Hubbard and Chair Carlson.
Oh, that's trouble right
I
there.
think she was gone that meeting.
Are you trying to
Commissions.
cede, are you trying to cede your spot on that?
You say?
Are you trying to cede your spot on that commission?
No,
Mr. Hubbard?
I don't want her to, I don't want her to feel left out. She's gonna go to Zoom, or she's gonna participate
She's
in
like
a Zoom
creating,
meeting on
she's
Monday.
creating a whole.
She
like,
is, she's a full-time job.
Yeah. A whole immigration curriculum, which I'm super excited about. Well,
It started with Hannah's idea. It was Hannah's idea. I
Well,
can't take credit for it.
which-
We're just,
who could also create an immigrant curriculum from her own day job. So, yeah, so I will confess, so August is my busiest month of the year. And I did not write down who was on that group, but I'm happy to pull that together. I don't know if I actually am really interested in moving forward with that. We've heard this from this tonight, and I think between that and the Mikasa presentation, we've got some really meaty things to discuss. If there is a switch that we want to make, I'm happy to entertain that if somebody else wants to be on that group. But we will convene in the next couple of weeks, so. And we'll just connect on May 1st.
I do it all the time, so I'm like, I connect with people. So I don't have to officially be in a group to do that, just so you know.
The HRC logo. So I promised last month that I would come back with you to talk about the logo real quick. So I did an informal interview kind of on the street to various people, asking them what are keywords that define the Human Rights Commission. And so you'll see that I jotted down phrases, a phrase, or words that people said. The Human Rights Commission grows, it's welcoming, it creates partners, it cultivates and embraces, it's an inclusive environment, it serves as a bridge and promotes inclusiveness. So those are the kind of the keywords that, or phrases that I heard when I was thinking about how do we provide guidance to someone or to groups of people in seeking a new logo for the Human Rights Commission. I listened last month. Martin suggested that we just go and find somebody to do it or go to the internet. So I did explore that option. And of course, there is an internet option to create a logo. And the costs are anywhere from, I find it hard to believe, free, but there was one free, to up to $5,000, which I thought, wow, that would be our entire budget. But, so I did explore that, and that certainly is an option. When I thought about that, I couldn't help but think that removes the community opportunity. And we won't have anyone thinking about what it is that we do as the commission, or how they see us in the community. And so I explored it. I'm not recommending that we go that route. I really like the idea that we reach out to members of our community through the school district, through the Arts Consortium, through an article in the Herald, to whatever social media outlets that we have, and invite people to take this list of words, if you like these words, or we'll add to the list, and create logos for us that we can consider. The Arts Consortium is willing to promote. I don't have the school contacts for art, but I do have the contact for the Arts Consortium.
Yeah.
I mean, the Arts Consortium and Integrative Arts. So I'm wondering where you want to go with this. Do you want to proceed, or is this just something that we should table for further discussion at a later date?
Well, what is our deadline?
There is no deadline.
I do like on here, you have the time frame kind of penciled in.
Right?
And I think that if we were to open it to students, that several month span would give people an opportunity to fit it in when it seems right, to fit into, you know, for the teachers to mention it to their students. Maybe at a time where they don't have some big project planned or something like that.
That recommendation came from the Arts Consortium. They said that if you're going to offer something in the community, then it should be a 60 days. You should have a beginning date and an end date, because otherwise people could carry it for years. And she said it was easier and better for the project to have a limited time frame. She did not recommend 30 days, because that is a short turnaround, but conceivably, in 60 days, and it doesn't have to be September 1st through November 30th, but that was just the kind of a 60-day kind of opportunity.
I have a question. Now,
Yes.
would it be possible, and I know that teachers have already set their syllabus, so it's already set in, but would it be possible to bring this, the idea of creating a logo, to a social studies class for high school kids? No?
I don't think so.
No?
I mean,
Yeah.
to me, this is an opportunity where, like, I would be happy to get it to the IAA and to the
Got it.
Chaska art departments, and they would post this as an opportunity for students. They wouldn't work that into their class
Got it.
sometime.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
I wouldn't expect that, so.
Yeah, got it.
That would not have been my expectation.
Yeah.
I like it. I think it's a good idea. I think that it'd be cool too for the, like for promotion in the Herald, it'd also be cool to publicize who won and like what it looks like. And I don't know if you're able to do that, but
Kind
I don't
of
know
introduce
rules
it
of
as,
the
oh, sorry, introduce it as, like, here's our new logo,
Yeah.
you know, and you'll see this at our events and stuff.
I would suggest October, though.
Mm-hmm.
as a start, October to
Yeah.
December.
Yeah, just because if we're gonna invite high schoolers, trying to get that on the radar of art teachers the first couple weeks of school would be,
Difficult, probably.
yes. And that gives us some time to get things placed and get a little write-up together.
Sure. What do you think of offering a stipend?
I support that.
Is the dollar amount too much, too little?
that's very cheap for design services. So I would say you're already asking people to spend time on something that they're not promised they will get compensated for. So that feels reasonable to me.
Could you change it from stipend to, well, depending upon where it's advertised, can you change it from stipend to scholarship?
Nice.
Sure.
I'm fine with the $200. It seems low to me.
It does.
I don't know, 500 sticks in my mind, but that's,
Are you thinking like a college scholarship, or if it's a,
so if it's going to a high school
yeah,
student,
yeah.
in my mind, I would see, because I see the kids right in the, one of the things we do, so I'm part of this National Association of Theater Owners. So what we do is every year we put out a scholarship for all the high school kids, whoever works at a movie theater, and to see them, how many applications come in, because all these seniors or whoever is looking for money to go to school. And I think if we just label it something different, it might encourage at least some of these seniors or some of these students to do
Do you
more.
think that the word scholarship, though, would limit the people who would be able to, or would feel comfortable submitting something if you're not planning to go to college, or if you're a retiree that's in the Arts Consortium or something, they're gonna say, I don't need a scholarship.
No, but where you advertise it, so if it was just, so whatever goes out to the high school, it would say scholarship. I don't know. If it goes to our consortium, it would say something else, stipend or something, I don't know. That's just my thought. How do you get more people engaged in that, that time?
Okay.
I'm not trying to be argumentative.
No,
but
I
there are
know.
plenty of students who do not go on to college, and so I think that may deter them maybe from something.
Could, or it could say, oh, wait a minute, I can get $500, help me go to college.
Well, true.
I don't know, I'm just
No, it's a good point. I mean, it is.
Okay, so
Martin
it sounds to
totally
me
changed the
like
number, though.
all of us agree. If any of you want changes in those words that describe human rights, if you could send them to Elise, and Elise would send them to me.
That works.
Get our thesaurus and figure out the perfect word.
And perhaps, Elise, I could work with Kevin to create the language that we could send out to folks.
I'm fine with that if Kevin is okay with that.
You're there, God.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Excellent. For our viewing audience, I should reference that Kevin Wright is not in the room, but he can see us and periodically responds to us. Okay, so the final item that we need to talk about then is what dollar amount are we talking about? So know that we have $2,191. We know that we want to buy bling or swag for next year's River City Days. We want to do something with the burial mound
Yes.
signage at City Square Park. And so, considering the dollars that we have, what would be your recommendation? And if you make that recommendation into a motion, that would be terrific.
Chair Carlson, if I may, you may just want to think about the timing of how you have it advertised from October to December, and that this might be a 23. I just throw that out there for consideration.
You're absolutely right, Elise. Thank you so much.
Which is okay, because we
Which
have
is
a
okay.
bigger budget for next, well, hopefully we'll have a bigger budget next year.
I agree with Martin. I think $500 sounds like a reasonable amount for a piece of art that we will be using for years to come. So I think for the effort that's put into it and the amount it's used, that seems realistic.
Are you making a motion?
I will make a motion to change the amount to $500 for the stipend scholarship thing.
I'll second.
So motion's been made to offer a $500 stipend gift scholarship to the winning logo design for the Human Rights Commission. It's been seconded by Martin. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carry. Strategic plan,
No updates.
empathetic response,
No updates.
calendar programs.
Oh, we just came up, no updates.
Oh,
We're
I
doing
do.
quite a bit of work.
I
here.
have something.
Oh, sorry, I was on that, so, sorry.
Annual ongoing initiatives. This I borrowed from the Human Rights Commission from the city of Bloomington. They put together a work plan. Pretty impressive, I thought. These are their ongoing initiatives. I think you'll like this, Martin. In January, Dr. King. February, Black History Month. March, women's rights. May, Asian Pacific Heritage Month. June, Pride Month. September, International Day of Peace, Hispanic Heritage Month. November, Native American Heritage Month. December, International Human Rights Day. And then they say other proclamations may be made throughout the year. But I thought that might be something that, talking about our calendar, we could consider.
So, just a point of clarification, when we talked about the strategic plan at the last meeting, I thought we talked about the executive, essentially taking that approach, the executive committee would come up with something for the rest of folks to respond to, so we would have
Okay,
a work plan for.
thank you. We'll do that.
Am
Executive
I remembering that correctly? I just want to make sure
Yeah,
that,
you
okay,
did.
all right.
You did,
But I think, hang on to that, because that's why I start from scratch.
exactly.
They
Website.
must have Bloomington must have a big budget for their Human Rights Commission.
I will find out.
Well, no, and that's not a, I mean, it's a bigger city, that's not a, but they threw, their pride thing was like crazy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm just, it was not a different community, different, I don't want to be Bloomington, I live in Chaska for a reason.
Exactly.
Anyway.
But I did take a look at Richfield, Shakopee, Bloomington.
St. Louis Park at all, or no?
I didn't get to St. Louis Park, I'm sorry.
No, don't be.
I think the dog started to bark and somebody came in the door. And you know how it is at the office. Website,
So Kevin and I are ships passing tonight, but the voice of God will confirm that we're gonna meet in the next time, by our next meeting, that website will look so slick, you're gonna have no idea what happened.
we're gonna hold it, we're gonna hold,
See? Confirmed.
okay, great. We're gonna hold you to it.
You can pull it up, everyone can look at it.
That's right. It's gonna be the bomb.
Is there any new business that needs to come before us this evening? Our next meeting then is September 22nd, 2022. May I have a motion to adjourn? Or is there any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much. We'll see you in September, if not before.